Hey guys, so this is going to be a long video. You can see this video alone is about 17 minutes long. So with all the lore drops that have happened and all that stuff, we're going to watch this and there's another video kind of like just following up um and kind of talk about where I think this game's lore is going. And when it comes to games, I love the lore. Whether it be Zelda, World of Warcraft, or whatever it is, I love the lore. I love when people create a world like this and fill it with so much history and story that you actually care about these characters. Now, if you haven't completed the Archon quest, spoilers, I highly recommend doing it. Um, this isn't obviously this is Abyss breakdown. They have a lot of the cinematics and stuff like that. So, this isn't mine. It's all goes to them. But if you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. Fontaine has by far one of the best stories of the game so far. Best Archon quests. Apart from, Nahida's is sweet little Nahida. But the Nahida and Farina, the tragedy, this 500 years, Nahida being imprisoned for 500 years. Arena, you're about to hear, basically, great job with the marketing, Mihoyo. Hoyoverse. It's like, oh god, we're gonna get the Archon, and then guess what? Yeah, you don't actually get the Archon. But spoilers ahead. We're gonna watch this. I'm gonna kind of talk about things and where I think this game is going for the next year. It's been 3 years so far, and we've got Natlon next, and then finally Snezhnaya. So within, in 2024, we will have finished what I want to call the Celestia Sibling Saga. And there's a reason I call it that. But without further ado, here is Focalor's Ultimate Sacrifice.
What's happening with the oratories?
I believe it is preparing to carry out the death sentence.
Marina! No, I still need answers.
Also, I have to say, when it comes to lore and story and games, players, they're eating well. And through this cutscene, there's a certain other group of people that'll be eating well. You'll know it when you see it. Because I know the first thing, if you're one of those people who at least know what I'm talking about, you'll hear words go through your head. And so, as players, we're eating well. And for this character, for Focalor, certain other group of people are eating well, as well. You'll know it when you see it. For free? Yeah. If that's what you thought of, congratulations. You're a man of culture.
You.
Sorry. That shocked expression on your face is just too amusing. I couldn't help myself.
You are not Farina. Who are you?
The sweet sound of bewilderment. Marvelous. A sure sign that my attempt to deceive everyone was a resounding success. But to answer your question, I am Focalor. You know, the god.
Focalor, why did you deceive us?
Oh, that wasn't my goal, of course. Goodness, no. But I had to fool everyone else too, if I was to stand any chance of deceiving the heavenly principles.
So the heavenly principles, Celestia. We know that Celestia isn't what it appears. We know that Celestia hasn't been around forever, that it's a fairly new addition to Tevat, and it's not a good place. It's really not. We hear from Zhongli about his gnosis, how the longer he has his gnosis, he feels like almost like a boulder, getting hit by waves, just slowly over time, just breaking apart, eroding, and becoming something that he doesn't want to become. And it's all because of the connection with the gnosis and Celestia, and what we find out is what the gnosis actually are. But Celestia is not good. And you kind of see this trend of all the gods trying to separate themselves from it. The heavenly principles, or the sustainer of heavenly principles, possibly the god that we saw, they said, oh, I'm the sustainer of heavenly principles. They come across, oh, I'm doing the just thing, I'm doing this and that, but really they're just jerks.
Deceiving the heavenly principles.
It's all because of that pernicious prophecy. Dreadful, wasn't it? Everyone doomed to dissolve. Fontaine condemned to be flooded. One was not amused. In fact, one was positively bemused when that problem was thrust upon me by my dearest predecessor. That's the former Hydro Archon Egeria for the uninitiated. It hardly gets more disastrous than a preordained national catastrophe, now does it? She knew full well that the prophecy would surely come to pass. And as one of the seven, she also knew full well that one defies the heavenly principles at one's peril. So
Yeah. Conria, the nation without a god. Look what happened to them. Now, people think, oh, they were wonky stuff going there. I think it was more just the fact that Celestia didn't like the fact that they didn't have a god. Some were watching over them, keeping tabs on them. A place that Celestia really had no impact in. And as the gods, they didn't like that. So, bye-bye, Conria. So you can... Celestia, it's not a good place. The mortals are like, oh, if I'm good and this and that, I ascend to Celestia, like Vanessa did, the first Grandmaster of the Knights of Favonius. She ascended to Celestia. But the gods know what it really is. And we keep hearing from our sibling, once you reach the end of your journey, you'll understand, like, why it's like, why are you part of the Abyss Order? Why are you control? It's like, you'll understand everything when you get to the end of your journey, like I did. So there's also with the Saritsa, but I think, once we get to the very, very end, I'll kind of explain that a little bit, because lore drops.
As you have no doubt surmised, it was a rather impossible situation that I found myself in. I spent a terribly long time mulling it over, alone on the ocean floor. And I was almost growing barnacles by the time I finally realized there was only one possible solution to this confounding conundrum. I had to outwit the heavenly principles, allow the prophecy to be fulfilled, ostensibly at least, while saving everyone at the same time. Oh, I'm a genius, I know. I can only assume that's why Egeria chose me as her successor. Although, looking back now, it was hardly the inheritance one dreams of. Between the task of saving the nation, the quotidian duties of the Hydro Archon, and not to mention the original sin of creating a new race of humans, I dare say she left me quite a colossal mess to clean up. But one can only play the hand one is dealt. I did not choose this, any more than I chose to be one of her Oceanid familiars.
So you were also once one of the Oceanids, transformed into a human by Egeria's hand.
Yes, I was. I always dreamed of becoming human. And I still do, even now. In my eyes, to be human is to be part of the greatest opera ever known. After becoming a god, I separated my divinity from my body and spirit, leaving behind only a self that was as naive and bewildered as my past self on her first day as a human being. The me you see before you now is that divinity. And the human counterpart I left behind, I named Farina. She could feel joy, sorrow, and everything in between. She could be as vain and conceited, or as meek and vulnerable as she wished. Her strengths were of a kind only a human could possess, as were her shortcomings. But in my eyes, Farina's humanity was what made her perfect. She was perfectly human in every way, the person I always wanted to be. Anyway, so then I cursed her.
Seamlessly connect.
In my eyes, Farina's humanity was what made her perfect. She was perfectly human in every way, the person I always wanted to be. Anyway, so then I cursed her. All part of the plan, of course. The plan to deceive the heavenly principles. Do you still remember the final scene of the prophecy? The Hydra Archon alone, weeping on her throne. In order that the prophecy might appear fulfilled, I invited Farina to be an actress, to play the part of the Hydro Archon in the prophecy. Under the curse I placed on her, so long as I, Focalor's divinity, continued to exist, she could not die. But nor was she free to live her life in the pursuit of happiness. Instead, she was forced to take the stage in the opera house, to embrace the role of leading lady, to forever play the part of the god from the prophecy, all to create a deceitful appearance of that prophecy coming to pass. I suppose now you probably understand why your court is called the Opera Epiclese.
But Farina is only human, isn't she? Even though she has had a long life, her mind is no stronger than that of any other ordinary human being. I cannot begin to fathom what she has had to endure. It must have been torture for her.
It has indeed. And although she is, in a sense, me in human form, I most definitely owe her an apology for it. It's been 500 years, and all along, she's been playing her part in the most unimaginably long, unbearably lonely, and agonizingly painful opera of all time.
So, as we learn, Farina is not the true Archon. Focalor is the Archon who's just kind of taken over the human that she's kind of created and put her divinity into as a way to deceive Celestia and the heavenly principles. In 500 years, I mean, obviously people don't live for that long here, but imagine, like, it's like Nahida. Imagine being imprisoned, unable to go anywhere for 500 years. Not just being imprisoned, but imprisoned by the very people you were meant to serve and protect and watch over. And here we have Farina, like, basically doomed to carry out this extremely long plan that Focalor set into motion just to deceive the heavenly principles, all to lead up to this point. 500 years. So you can't even imagine the type of mental anguish and just the depression and the sorrow, and it's insane.
So even Farina doesn't know the truth? You've never once let her in on the full plan?
Yes, it had to be done. To deceive the heavenly principles, you must first deceive yourself. She did very well. If she had let her resolve falter even once in these 5 centuries, Fontaine would have been doomed to the most tragic fate. It seems that trusting humanity was the right decision after all.
I believe that I understand how your deception works, but that is only half the truth, is it not? How would you build on this foundation to save the people of Fontaine? That is the most important thing.
Ah, good. Of course, the Eudex of Fontaine has pinpointed the crux of the issue. I'm sure you've long sensed that the Oratrice is no simple machine, yes?
I've always suspected that it had its own consciousness, and Lenny did mention that he heard a human voice within the core chamber. It now seems that that person was you, hidden within the machine all along. Am I right?
And then I became one with the Oratrice, taking Fontaine's gnosis with me. Yes, it would seem so, wouldn't it? Alas, your understanding of this device still lacks sufficient depth. In truth, it is no enactor of justice. It is, in fact, a device created to kill the god of justice.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, you have it. And to be more precise, not only will the Oratrice take down the god of justice, it will also take down the divine throne upon which she has been placed. I mean, did you think I would be the sort to enjoy peaceful repose while Farina suffered? My work over these last 500 years has been to constantly accumulate indemnitium within the Oratrice.
Okay, so people who don't understand, she's talking about not only taking herself out, which she's going to do, but she's ending the line of Hydro Archons. She does not want Fontaine to have an Archon anymore. And a lot of it, again, has to do with Celestia. The Archons kind of know what Celestia is about, since the Gnosis it's a connection to them, and it slowly erodes them over time. And it's one reason why I think Zhongli put into motion his plan to see if his nation could survive without him. I think even Venti might have. I mean, he is the animal archon, and whispers, traveling on the wind's breath. So I think he has an idea. I mean, he lost his gnosis to Signora, but Venti is a lot more powerful than everyone thinks. He can take a mountain and blast it with wind hundreds of miles away. If he wanted to take out Signora or whoever, he could have done it, but he didn't want his gnosis anymore. I think he kind of had an idea what the Saritsa's up to, and he wanted it taken away. He didn't want to give it up himself, but so he was like, oh, I'm just gonna feign my strength here. Oh, she got me good. Oh, but in truth, I think he has some idea about, he travels all over. Surely he's heard it on the wind's breath. And the Gnosis, if you notice, all the gods, Venti lost his to Signora. Zhongli gave his away directly to the Saritsa, in their contract. Raiden Shogun, she was like, I don't want this. She gave it to Miko, who gave it to Scaramouche. At the end here, Fontaine, Nivolette gives the Gnosis to Knave. So the gods clearly know that these Gnosis are bad news, and they're doing what they can to separate themselves not only from the Gnosis but to Celestia. But continue.
But really, some have already discovered that only a small fraction of the energy generated by the device was ever used to provide power to Fontaine. The vast majority had to be, accumulated to enact this death sentence.
It was all a part of your plan then? Both the trial and the sentence?
Indeed. This power, accrued over 5 centuries, could have sustained Fontainians for millennia had it only been used for that purpose. Almost all of it has now been stored within the oratories. But only power of this magnitude could hope to destroy the Hydro Archon's divine throne, shaking the rules established by Celestia and breaking through the institution that is the Seven.
So the Oratrice's call for death was for neither Farina nor Focalor, but for the Hydro Archon. The destruction of that divine throne. If I do not misunderstand your intent, you must be...
returning what's rightfully yours to you, of course. In other words, this was all done to return the authority of the Hydro Archon to the Hydro Dragon of this planet.
But...
Oh, what? Getting sad again, are we? The authority of the ancient dragons shall soon be yours once more, O Hydro Dragon Sovereign. And this is the face you make.
all you've done throughout the years is just so you can sacrifice yourself at the very end.
I've never quite seen it that way, you know. Even now, I'm quite pleased at how well my deception worked. Hydro Dragon, don't cry. I must say, had it been within my rights, I would have loved to judge the heavenly principles themselves. Were they not guilty of essentially the same crime? Egeria stole the power of the primordial sea, and the heavenly principles stole the power you ancient dragons possessed. I, for my part, am the god of justice. And is it not just that your original powers should be returned to you? Speaking of justice, I have always believed that justice lies in the process of pursuing human existence itself. So, if the theft of the primordial sea's might was Fontaine's original sin, then, leaving matters of procedural right and wrong aside, the descent of the Fontainians as humans and their right to exist in this world would be Fontaine's original justice. In other words, existence was Egeria's justice, and to me, justice is the continuation of that existence, defying the prophecy and ensuring that Fontaine's people shall live on. That should be the justice enthroned over all others. At this point, we, whether it be myself or all other Fontainians, have shouldered the burden of this sin for far too long. Iudex Nervillet, the highest judge in our land, when you regain your full power as an elemental sovereign, what verdict shall you pass upon us?
So when I was invited to the court of Fontaine to serve as Iudex, I see now that that was your idea too. At last, I now understand the true purpose behind this position. In the beginning, I was uninterested in human existence. But these 5 centuries of living alongside them have gradually brought about mutual understanding between us. And I have even attempted to feel as they feel. You are a devious one, Focalor. Things being as they are, surely you know that I could never declare them to be guilty.
The hour of my execution is almost here. For the sinner, the curtain call has come. I know I may not sound it, but faced with death, I find myself a little afraid. Perhaps this is one thing both gods and humans have in common. Farewell, Nervalette. I hope you've enjoyed the part you played these 500 years.
Nervalette, hereby declare, people of Fontaine, your sins are forgiven.
In the end, the people will all be dissolved into the waters, and only Farina will remain, weeping on her throne. Only then will the sins of the people of Fontaine be washed away.
Initiate emergency rescue! Hurry! is receding! It's a miracle!
The water's receding.
We didn't dissolve. The prophecy was wrong. The prophecy was wrong.
Are you alright? We're saved. The prophecy was wrong.
Okay, so here's the kind of the other important cutscene. So basically, after you can go talk to Nivelette, and he'll talk you, just like Zhongli did and all them. He's like, oh, next part of my journey and this and that. You ask about, what about Fontaine and Farina, and he says, oh yeah, well, she's, I gave her the news that Focalors told me, and she was neither, saddened or comforted. She just kind of, said that I'm tired and I need to get some rest. Apparently, Farina's moved out of the opera house and he's giving her home and food. He's taking care of her. He kind of feels really, really bad about what happened. And so Farina, for the rest of however long her life is, she doesn't have to worry about anything. This man is going to take care of her. But at the end where there's like, oh, I don't have anything else to ask, he brings up this. Now, we meet Skirk, who is Child's master. Very interesting lore we're about to learn. I'll just say that.
The all-devouring narwhal isn't here, so I'm no longer getting any interference. I can finally catch the scent of your power, what it's made of. It is the authority of the planet's primordial dragons, but with something very similar to a god's curse mixed in. It's quite a novel blend. I'm sure I've encountered something like this before. What was it again?
I do not know what you speak of.
Of course. How could I forget? You should have the remains of the third descender on your person, yes?
Remains? I've never heard of any such thing.
According to your parlance, I believe it may be called a gnosis.
Well, that much is true. After Focalors' divinity faded, she handed her gnosis to me. But I fear I have never heard of it described in the manner that you just did.
I've been training with my master, the Foul, ever since I was young, and I have never returned to the surface since. So most of the information I possess, I got from him. It is only natural for those who are greater than humanity to possess a different sort of common sense, which is why there are so many problems in our attempts to communicate with humans. Regardless, you should probably get rid of objects of misfortune to prevent any disasters from befalling you. To live in itself is a blessing. But once a person dies, the bonds he once had with this world shall all turn to curses.
What do you mean by that?
No need to fret. These are just my personal thoughts, and my reason for no longer wishing to return to the surface.
This third descender you refer to, who are they? And when did they die?
Master never mentioned them to me. Perhaps it just wasn't that important for me to know. If you're interested, though, I could ask him. I'll be sure to pass the answer on to you next time.
Next time? You believe we will meet again?
I do. Wait. I have a disciple of my own, don't I? He can be the messenger then.
That's what she told me. Whether it would prove useful or not, I wanted to pass that information on to you.
The remains of the third
third descender? So that's what the Gnosis actually are. Paimon just thought they looked like chess pieces. How could they be a person's remains?
All the same, assuming that there was no misunderstanding or special metaphor at play, that is what she meant to say.
And she said that it would bring misfortune and that you should chuck it, which is why you gave it to the Fatui.
If she speaks the truth, then I would simply be putting Fontaine at unnecessary risk by keeping it here. I had guessed that you might already be familiar with this concept, but I did not expect you to be one of them. That means that the Gnosis, which are exceedingly element-compatible and can even enhance elemental abilities, do indeed come from the third descender. I wonder, does your body also possess similar properties?
Like being able to use elemental powers without a vision. That does sort of count as special compatibility, right? No, let's not think about this stuff right now. It just feels creepy. Comparing the Traveler to the dead third descender and all. That's what you say, but this topic still feels like bad luck. Once Child recovers, let's get some more answers out of him. Or go look for his master and get the answers that way.
I too believe it unwise to make too many blind guesses when information is lacking. The same is true of being at court.
All right. Whatever the case, it seems like the crisis here in Fontaine's over for now.
So that's right. The gnosis that Celestia gives to the Archons are made, at least I'm guessing the spirit. I'm guessing this third descender was kind of like the Avatar, where they could harness all the elements, not needing a vision, just as we are able to. And the fact that Celestia is the one who is handing these out makes me think that this person is related to Celestia in some way. Again, Celestia hasn't always been there. It's not like, oh, Celestia's been there since the creation and the beginning. No, Celestia is fairly new. So whatever these gnosis, whatever person or being they belong to, it's relatively new. Considering there's been 4 descenders, we're the 4th, and whoever this third one is has been, at least spiritually or elementally, just been taken apart and put into. We got one more cutscene, kind of more of a happy ending. Still pretty sad given everything she's been through. But this is Farina receives her vision. Because remember, she was basically inhabited by the Hydro Archon, so she really didn't need one of her own. But now she's being blessed with her own. So.
Will she get here? She's not coming! You're wrong. She's here.
Si je pouvais vivre dans l'eau, le monde serait-il plus beau? Me pardonneras-tu, ô chère mère? L'eau dans son courant fait danser nos vies et la cité elle nourrit ainsi que toi mon doux amour.
But what about your wish?
My wish.
Human, you can reveal your secret to no one. You will face suffering and loneliness.
Is this truly what you want?
Le grand amour ne suffit pas, seul un adieu fleurira. C'est notre histoire de vie, douce et amère. Je serai toujours là, à voir le monde et sa beauté, et ça ne changera jamais, jamais.
Jesus. Okay, so it kind of seems like it's kind of the story of her kind of becoming the Archon, because it looks obviously within the past like, oh, you should about becoming human and stuff like that. So clearly this is probably like parallel to Focalor, but also I think now that Focalor is no longer, her divinity is no longer inhabiting her body, is she still able to use the power of Hydro, or does now she need a vision? And if so, I'm assuming Neuvillette could grant her a vision of her own. But God, that freaking song, that was the beauty of the song was right up there with Yunjin's opera, and we don't get stuff like this often, and that was absolutely, I can't even put it into words. It was just beautiful. And no, that wasn't the voice actor. They actually hired a French singer to do that for them. And then you're reading the words, and it's freaking beautiful. But okay, so the lore drop, the fact that the third descender is essentially the Gnosis. And I've said before that the Gnosis, before, as we heard from Zhongli, who kind of said, like I said, it was, it's like a boulder in the ocean, the tide getting hit by the tide. It erodes you over time. And he said that over time, because he's been around for 6,000 years. So slowly over time, it erodes who he is. And it's almost like making him become more subservient to Celestia, and he doesn't want any part of it. Now, the Tsaritsa, he wanted to see if Liyue was good with moving into a new age without a god, just as Fontaine is doing. They no longer have an Archon. They have Neuvillette, who is the dragon, Hydro Dragon Sovereign. He kind of like predates the Archons. And he is basically Hydro incarnate. He is Hydro. But Zhongli made a contract with the Tsaritsa. Now, up to, for a while, we thought the Tsaritsa was like this bad person. Like, oh, the Fatui are bad people. They're not really bad people. Linny Lynette, they're Fatui. They're the nicest people. Child, same thing. He fought us, and he's like, afterwards, he's like, yeah, don't take it personally. I was just doing my job. Hopefully you can forgive me and we can become friends. But Zhongli made a contract with the Tsaritsa, and she provided the Fatui, and in exchange, he handed over his Gnosis. Now, as Zhongli is the Lord of Contracts, there's always the fine print. Do you really think that Zhongli would hand over his Gnosis to someone who he knows wants to destroy his nation? He knows exactly what the Tsaritsa is planning. And of course, if we were to ask him, he would just feign ignorance. He's like, I don't think I'm the one to tell you that, or I don't know what she's planning. And because he knows we have to get to Tsaritsa at some point, because we're going to Snezhnaya. So we have to meet her at some point. So she'll be the one to tell us her plan. But knowing that she's collecting the Gnosis, knowing that Zhongli wouldn't have given it to her if she was planning on attacking everyone, the knave basically said that for Tui's plans, the Saritsa's plans, isn't going to affect just one person or one nation. It's going to affect everyone. And what I think that Saritsa's trying to do is take down Celestia. Now, with the Gnosis, again, the Gnosis are, since they're a part of the third third Descender, either she's going to use the power to kind of inherit those abilities, that ability to just kind of use the elements, or she's going to use it to restore that Descender. Because apparently it was Celestia that kind of ripped them apart and stuck them into little Gnosis. Either way, she's launching an assault on Celestia. But Tui, or rather the Saritsa, the gods, have a vendetta against Celestia. The Abyss Order, where the Conria has a vendetta against Celestia. Celestia was the one who destroyed Conria. So the Abyss Order and the Fatui are essentially working to the same goal. Our sibling has met the leader of the Abyss, the person who created it, met them. And we keep hearing that, oh, when you reach the end of your journey, you'll understand. The end of our journey is Snezhnaya, at least in this saga. Like I said, it's the Celestia Sibling saga. I think that they know, because I believe another thing is that this world is not what it seems, or this land's not what it seems. We keep hearing the sky is fake. And I hope it doesn't end with, oh, this is all just one dream. I mean, the sky is fake. You can punch right through it and like, oh, it's just a dream. It's not real. Ooh. No, I don't think, hopefully it's not that, but Celestia, at least for right now, I think the sky is fake. That's going to be a continuing story. But right now it's Celestia. Celestia is causing a lot of problems. Like I said, the Fatui, or the gods, essentially have the Archons. The Archons are gods. They're kind of like demigods, you know, because they can be mortal, and like what happens when you mix god and mortal, you get demigods. So they can live essentially forever, but they can die. So they're more demigods than anything. But the Archons have a thing against them, especially Zhongli, because he's the one who outright said, yeah, I don't like this thing. We hear from Skirk that it's essentially a curse, you know, or you know, the other words that she would use, you know, they were just bad. You know, they're just, you shouldn't be around them. It just curses people. And I think the Saritsa wants them to reform that person or to take in that power. But I think she wants to take Celestia down. And I've thought this for a while because, again, Zhongli wouldn't have given it over so easily. If anyone knows what's going on, it's him. And if he was to hand over the Gnosis, and, you know, they have a contract, and he was to be betrayed by her, she would suffer the wrath of Rock. Like, Zhongli is the strongest of the Archons, and even an Archon would not stand against the wrath of Rock. So he knows what she's planning, and he handed his Gnosis over. Now, will he, in this final battle of this Celestia saga, will we see the Archon standing with us? We also now have power of a dragon sovereign in the form of Nivolette. I mean, are we going to stand these gods against those gods? Because, I mean, that's a story as old as time. You know, humans rising up against gods. Gods, I mean, look at the Greek pantheon. The Greek pantheon took on the Titans. Basically, like, the Titans are like, well, you can't defeat us. We're the universe itself. And what happened? Zeus led a rebellion against the Titans, and they won. Zeus becomes the king, you know, the leader of the pantheon, because they got tired of the Titans and their bullcrap. And we're seeing the same thing here. We're seeing the Archons getting tired of Celestia's bullcrap. You could think of like Celestia like the Titans, or rather more powerful not really more powerful, but higher in not morals, but you get what I'm saying here. The thing. So I think that's what we're gonna find out, is that the third descender is from Celestia, or brought Celestia here, because again, Celestia hasn't always been there. And that Saritsa's trying to either put them back together or become the Avatar or whatever it is, but we're going to help the Saritsa launch this assault on Celestia. And she wants a world that is not governed by these higher gods. Again, we've seen like Venti. Venti's already been doing it for a while, even though he still is an Archon. He's the god of the land of freedom. He'll get involved with things when, because he cares about his people, so he's not going to let them die. But for the most part, it's like, you can govern yourselves. You don't need me. We see Fontaine, same thing. They no longer have an Archon, and all that power has been given back to Nivelette, who is the dragon sovereign of Hydro. Zhongli, he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to fake my own death and go through all of this and see if the people of Liyue can, take care of themselves. They still have, the Qixing and the Adepti and all that, but it's like, can they survive without me, their Archon, the god of this nation? Can they do it? Can they work together? And I think even Nahida kind of hints at not really wanting to be in that Archon role. She just wants to be among them and learn and just live the life she never got to have because she's been imprisoned for 500 years. You see with the Raiden Shogun, she's much more social. She's no longer just kind of in her plane of euthymia. She's walking amongst the people, getting to know them, enjoying life. So you see all these Archons taking on a more human role because it's just what makes them happier. They don't. So I think this saga is going to end with a battle against Celestia. We're going to see that what our sibling was talking about, that, things are not what they seem. And it really reminds me of World of Warcraft right now. We're hearing, oh, the Titans are not what they appear. We're going to learn the truth about them when they come back. And the truth is, most times in games, the gods, they don't care about you. We know that the Archons care about us, but the gods, the sustainer of heavenly principles, and other gods up there, Celestia, they don't care. Look at Conria. You can say, oh, the crazy stuff going there. It was also a nation without a god, and they didn't like that. So what happened? Boom. And then look how many lives lost, how many people died. Not only were the Conrians cursed to forever live, a lot of them became hilly churls, and then you have people, the guy who forms the Abyss Order, and they become creatures. We have Dainsleif, who's wandering around now eternally. Gods, and like Zhongli's best friends and A's sister and Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, all of them died in this cataclysm because of Celestia. So I think the Saritsa's had it. Her ice cold heart. Ever since Conria, it said that her heart is ice cold. So I think she has no love anymore for really anything, but she wants Celestia to be taken down. So, I mean, you can kind of understand where they're coming from. So many lives have been ruined and destroyed because of Celestia, a place that hasn't even been around that long. It's just destroys lives. A loses her sister. Zhao loses his brothers and sisters, his fellow, demon hunters, and Zhongli loses his friends, and Nahida loses, well, Greater Lord Rakudevada dies and kind of creates, before she dies, creates Nahida, Farina, all this, just, it's so much death because of Celestia. But I think that's what we're doing next. We're going to get to Snezhnaya, learn the Saritsa's plan, and we're helping her out. And every update, Celestia gets closer and closer. It went from just a, thing in the sky that's just a 2D texture to like a full 3D model, and it gets closer and closer, and that's where we're going at the very end. And when we get to the end of our journey, we'll understand. But the huge lore drops, the third descender being like split up into the Gnosis, that's insane. And hopefully, people also, the second descender, people think might be Alice, but Alice is only like 60 years old, 60, 70, something like that. So, considering that we're the fourth descenders, our sister's, 500 years old, actually. So, Alice would have to be a little bit older, which she's not. She's like 60. But I don't think she is from... Actually, I don't know. She's not from this... I don't think she's from this world. She's way too powerful, and she can go wherever she wants. Like, she can go to different realities and realms, and so she's far too powerful. I don't think... She may not be from... She might be a descender that we just don't know about. But we'll see that whenever we meet her. But yeah, what did you think of the Hydro Archon quest? What the lore drops about Nevelet being a Hydro Dragon, sovereign, and the whole with the Gnosis being part of this this Descender, and the all-devouring Narwhal, and how it was woken by a child when he was a child, falling into that chasm, and all these lore drops, so much story. Let me know. I mean, obviously, if you haven't completed it, play through it. If you have, what did you think of it? Anyway, that's gonna do it for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.